Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to 115 Gaming. It has been a hot minute since we have done a video like this, but we are finally 7 months later finishing out our series on covering all of the operators for the years 1 through 5. So today we will be going over the year 4 operators. That's me, and Barrison is joining me today. And then at some point soon we're also going to do the year 5 operators as well. I don't know when that will come up in relation to this video, but I know it's been a while. We're finally here. For those of you who are still around, thank you for watching, and we're both really excited to finally go over these last two waves of operators, if you will. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get things started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is gridlock. So gridlock is the first attacking operator in year 4, and I'll just kind of read through her card, and then we'll talk about her. Gridlock at range 1 to 3 has 1 yellow and 2 red die, and that yellow is a cover die. At medium range, she's got 2 orange and 2 red, and one of those oranges is a cover die. And then at long range, she's got 2 yellow and 1 red. She is a heavyweight, so 6 health, no run. She has the orange destroy action. And then her ability, she has this throwable gadget called the Trax Stingers. Those are bulletproof. She gets 2 of them, and they're throwable. So that's a 6 space range that you can throw that in. And basically, it's kind of like, it's basically an attacking version of Bandit. Opposing operators entering a space containing or adjacent to the track stringer sustain a damage and immediately end their activation, except for decoy tokens. So I can't remember exactly what the difference is between this and Bandit, but basically she's kind of like an attacking throwable Bandit almost. She can close off up to 9 spaces. That gives attackers damage and ends their activation. So obviously, you know, probably no one's actually going to walk into these, but, you know, it's a good way to waste the defender's time if you finally, like, gotten into a site, or if you want to block off maybe an entryway space, you know, to basically just cover your flank. You can waste the defender's time so they can't immediately come flank around you, or they can't immediately come take the site, because you're filling up potentially 9, and if you have 2 of these down, 18 spaces worth of things that the defenders have to worry about before they can get to you. So I think she's pretty good. I think her gun is actually really solid. What are your thoughts on her, Bear?
Yeah, good heavyweight. Has the orange destruction that she can use as well. There's, orange destruction isn't super popular across all of the operators, so she is good to have that with her gadget too. It allows for kind of just watching flanks without having to like overwatch them, which is nice. And if you do have a big room, like you said, you can cover like 9 spaces worth. If they are to drop into an entryway space that the track stinger's next to, they have to end their activation. They can't do anything about it until next turn. So either you can act on it, or you could just move further away from that threat. Because it is throwable, honestly, she only has 2 counters. Well, 3, sorry. But Jaeger and Wamai, they both counter her ability because it is throwable. But if your opponent isn't bringing that, the only thing that they would have to counter is an impact nade. Most of the time, at least from the plays that we've seen, people are using their impact nades to open up walls because they have a bunch of yellow destructive operators. Kind of combos good if you are playing against a Thunderbird, where if you do use your track stinger, I guess this is more for defender side, but if the Trax is in the same room as the Kona station, then you can at least move through the room without taking damage as a defender, but you would still have to end your activation.
Yeah, it's good that they're bulletproof. That thing is bulletproof, so they can't just shoot at it. It has to be either Jaeger, Wamai, or a nitro cell, or an impact grenade. This would counter me pretty well, because I've actually stopped bringing impact grenades a lot, because there's a lot of, because I think about them in terms of walls, and so I bring defensive operators that have orange destroy. So for me, this would actually be pretty rough if I can't shoot it, because it's bulletproof. So I know as far as my playstyle as a defender, this could really mess with me for sure if I don't bring counters.
And her gadget is also, it's very similar to the defender's barbed wire tactical inventory.
Yeah. And
you did mention Bandit earlier. Really, the only difference is the Bandit causes a stun.
Yeah.
In addition to everything else.
Yeah, and Bandits also goes through reinforced walls, so she obviously doesn't have that. But like in a room like these big rooms like this, you can cover a lot of space, you know, right here.
Yep.
I'm thinking specifically on consulate, you know, you could toss it down here if you're worried about somebody coming behind you. You could toss this here to make sure that doesn't happen, you know, to watch your flank. I think there's a lot of, or you could put this, you know, right here to like cover this entire entryway spot. I think, you know, across all the maps, I think there's a lot of options where you could use this for sure.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I kind of want to add to it, it kind of is the opposite of, say, like how Bandit works, because they are kind of similar with what they do. But because Bandit's wire doesn't allow drones or even, I believe, deployables, I think you will take the hit and get stunned.
Yeah.
But specifically for the drones, Gridlock's ability does not stop that. So if you are running a Mazy or an Echo or anything like that, you can still technically move said gadgets through her track stinger.
Well, and again, it's a throwable, so you can also throw it through smoke overlays, which is obviously super useful, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and her gun is good. She's got Orange Destroy. Obviously, I think the only thing hampering her is she doesn't have Sprint. I think that's a fine trade-off for the gun and the gadget that she brings, for sure. I think she's pretty good.
I think she makes for a useful anchoring flank watcher. I would say you can easily put yourself in a position where you are watching, basically just holding the back line. You can, with her ability, you can have your stingers watch one entryway space, and then you can look 180 degrees, watch the other entry space if you're in a situation like that.
Yeah. I think this is good, mostly for, like, you know, scenarios like this where you're worried about someone coming behind, but I think especially for if you've taken the site and you want to throw something down to just, like, slow the defenders down, right? We've talked in our videos before about how once the attackers take the site, they're kind of the defenders. You know, they kind of switch roles, and so these are obviously really useful defensive gadgets, I think, in that sense. Okay, up next, we've got Mazy. You want to run through Mazy?
Yeah, I go through some Mazy. So, yeah, with Mazy, defender, middleweight. He's got really good short, medium, and long range. He has good range all around. No cover die. That's, like, super solid. And his ability, very unique. So he actually gets to start with only one charge cube that you do get to take from the opposing side. You only get to take it from their tactical inventory slot. If you're playing against a team that is not using any drone operators, then he's, you know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If they are running multiple drone operators on top of top of their tactical inventory, then you essentially you have like pseudo infinite uses of his ability as long as they are using someone's drone every round or activation. Unfortunately, if you do take a Lion or a Twitch or a Flores drone, you don't get its ability, but you can still take the drone
as a regular drone.
Charge cube from them and then put it on Mazy, assuming that he has the space to do so.
Yeah, because basically the way it works is that every time the attacker deploys a drone, they're giving Mazy a drone cube. It's kind of with the attackers, like it's kind of like a trade-off for them. Every time they use a drone, they're going to get intel, but they're also giving the defenders the ability to get intel on them on their next turn. I think, especially if you've watched our games, I think, you know, the reason I'm going to say I think Mazy is really good is that I think we definitely have, at least with our group, we've been using drones a lot. I think obviously they're super important. And even just the ability to just steal one drone from the outset, I think is, I don't want to say underrated because I don't think people have played him a lot, but I think it's really, really solid. I think especially a lot of attackers' habits is they go upstairs, they drop some drones down below, they like locate a bunch of operators and they can kind of get some early shots. So to limit that to where they can only use it twice is super useful, but not only that the attackers are only they only get 2 drones, you know, just from their basic tactical inventory, but that every drone they use, the defenders can turn around and use the drones on them. I think it's just really solid. And I think the biggest drawback is, like you said, all the attacker has to do is just not use drones, you know, to really counter this.
And I think Mazy he's just another version of Pulse. You just have a medium build and your light build. It just depends on what you want to use between the two. But I would put them basically in the same role if you needed to cover one of those categories for your list, team comp. You've got, you know, you can really go with either, and neither one of them are going to be a very bad option.
Yeah, well, at the very least, it's a good thing that they at least start with one drone, you know, to start. So at the very least, you're always going to get one good drone use out of him. And then secondly, like, don't overlook his gun. Any 3 dice that don't have cover dice in there is going to be very consistent. And if you're a defender, you're probably usually going to be shooting it short to medium range. So 1 orange, 2 red, 1 yellow, 2 red. That's really good. I mean, you could even take him maybe just for his gun because it's going to be really consistent and solid, I think.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that we didn't really touch on that goes into his ability as well, he helps set up wall banks very effectively. Again, he's like a different version of Pulse, but they serve the same purpose. You know, if you are playing against another team that does have a bunch of drones, I highly recommend picking Mazy. You get to keep taking those drones from them, and you don't have to worry about creating those lines of sight from your side, thus like saving you some destroy actions that you can use elsewhere, trying to do shoot actions or runs, overwatches, or abilities. Gives you it can, if you are using it for wall banging potential, put him on a team with other really good fraggers across all ranges.
Yeah,
and that's super good.
Yeah, and like I think you could easily, like, if the attackers haven't opened up a bunch of walls, if they've taken a site and there's a bunch of soft walls in there, you could potentially like kill them from safety, right, with Mazy, by being able to just drone in and having your team shoot through the walls at the attackers who've taken the site. I think he's pretty flexible. I actually think he's really good. Okay, up next is one of my new favorites, and that is Knock. Knock is very simple, but she's really good. So firstly, obviously, she, just like Mazy, has a really good gun, very consistent at short to middle range. It's the same, 2 orange and 1 red. That's really good. And then at long range, 2 yellow and 1 red. Not as good, but again, probably with Knock, because of her ability, you're probably going to be getting up close with her most of the time anyway. So she's probably mostly going to be rolling the 2 orange, 1 red, which is really solid. She's a middleweight, so 5 health, yellow destroy, 2 sprint. But then here's what's really good. She has the hell presence reducers. Knock never receives a ping or never becomes located. And this is in every instance of her ability. So when she's shot at, she's not going to be located. When she walks into a room with cameras, she's not going to be located. When maybe Mazy drones in a room that she's in, she's not going to be located. I feel like there'd be a lot of new players who see this and don't think it's that good, but this is so good. It is really good, especially if you're running against a defensive setup that has a lot of cameras and is hoping to be able to shoot through walls. Knock just goes around that. She can go through rooms that a defender may set up with a bunch of cameras, and the defender may think, oh well, the attacker's not going to go through there because they're going to get tagged. But Knock can just like run right through, and suddenly what wasn't a hole in the defense before is kind of a gaping hole, because Knock can just ignore so much of the defender's utility in that sense. So I think she's really solid. Do you have any notes on her?
Yes, I do think like the big thing with her not receiving a locate is definitely from other operators who are shooting at her. Like that's super good. She really counters about a fourth to like a third of the defensive team who also locate with their abilities,
like Pulse
and whatnot. Yeah, if you really like get to the core of it, she sort of saves your action economy on the attacking side, because now you can destroy a barricade or a window, and then you can move into a room and you don't have to worry about destroying the camera, at least yet. So it allows you to move further into a room. I know a lot of people, they like to play safe, so they will destroy something and then lean from behind the wall, but also from the safety of the outside. If you are taking a good enough approach, you can get deeper into a room to gain some of the map control, whether you're trying to get a line of sight before your opponent, or if you're also just trying to overwatch an entryway space so that it can't be used against you in the early game.
Yeah, so like a good scenario here would be like, let's say, the bomb is in here. I can't remember which spot it goes in, but let's say the bomb is in here, right? And oh yeah, you're right. So, a setup could be a defender has 2 to 3 cameras in this room. They're like, oh, he doesn't have Thatcher, so I'll just load up a bunch of cameras in here and I'll hide behind this wall and they're not going to drop in. And honestly, I'll be able to shoot them through this soft wall. And honestly, all you need, for your strategy is to just get one operator in and be able to do something without being tagged, and Knock allows you to do that, right? Knock allows you would be able to drop in and maybe defuse the bomb and just ignore this, and then could, overwatch up, and now suddenly they're holding the site right under the defender's nose. Or like you said, yeah, like you can just ignore the cameras for a little bit and destroy other gadgets, like maybe Wamai's gadgets or mute jammers,
Even though she does dodge or kind of negate all of the locates that it says that she can do, the only downfall, and it's a very, very small one, is that she can't counter the damage that could be dealt via Legion's ability or Maestro's Evil Eyes. They won't get the locate for sure, but she does not negate the damage.
Yeah.
So just a slight thing to pay attention to, but it's usually not going to be that relevant unless your opponent is playing to those strengths specifically.
Next, we've got Warden.
Close and medium range, super solid, especially that close range. 2 yellow, 2 red, no cover die. That's like the best thing that you can ask for. He easily, just with that, he becomes a pretty good hatch bully, in my opinion. Just as Nock never receives a locate, Warden, he can never receive a stun. And then he can also see through smoke and gas overlays, which is good. So he is a pretty ideal counter to Glaz, assuming that your positioning is prepared before somebody can pull off a long range line of sight from Glaz, accompanied by smokes. And he's got the Orange Destruction, like even that really helps. Again, there's not a whole lot of ops that have Orange Destruction. Some of them, they just their Orange Destruction makes them good, but just the fact, like his ability, as well as his close and medium range and the Orange Destruction, he makes him a pretty solid pick. Solid pick overall. Probably more situational, but he still brings a lot when you can bring him.
He is situational, but also I feel like, especially in our games, there is always kind of a little bit of a heavy smoke overlay meta, almost. I haven't seen it as much the last couple games I've played, but still, like if you go back through our videos, a common attacker strategy is, well, let me make sure I can get a smoke in there, and then I can breach, right? So like we've seen this tons on Consulate, right? Like you were talking about with Glaz. You get Glaz posted up right here, you get a smoke overlay right here, and the attacks can kind of just like run in, and Glaz can shoot at people. But you get Warden on this spot on Consulate, and suddenly this strategy is just not viable anymore, right? You'd have to do some more maneuvering to get around it. So he can just kind of close off that what could be like a really easy push from the attackers to just, I'll just throw a smoke overlay and run in. Suddenly Warden just counters that. Now I think the biggest weakness for him, obviously I think it'd be pretty easy to identify, okay, this is obviously a good place for Warden on this map. I think what's going to be hard with Warden is making sure that you have him in the spots where the attackers are throwing their smoke overlays. Because it'd be a real shame to bring Warden and, you've got him over here, but then the attackers move in here, and this is where they deploy their smoke grenades. And suddenly, like Warden isn't using that ability. But I suppose that's why it's great that he also has things like, the Orange Destroy and never receiving a stun, because stun is also very powerful. So it's not like the smoke and gas overlay is the only thing that he has access to, obviously. But I think that's probably what I would say is his biggest weakness is you have to be able to either predict where they're going to throw smokes and hope you can get Warden in that spot.
I don't think he's an operator that you can play to like make sure that they are like always hidden throughout your game. I think he is someone that either you're just going to have to give up the locate and play aggressive with him. Otherwise, you just don't really get to utilize it. Yeah, like you said, just sort of with the situationalness of it, it's probably good to play him as like a pseudo anchor, forces you into a little bit of an aggressive play style. Not that that's like 110% what's going to happen for every single one of your games, but if you are using Warden, ideally you are bringing him up against Glaz, Blitz, or Ying, but you do want to make sure that he is in position before you need it to happen. So I mean, if we are using examples, we'll take this map. The big play is to put Glaz out here. I know we've got the gridlock, but that's basically the play. So the important spot to play with Warden would definitely be this space right here. It allows you to cut the range that Glaz could bring, and then it favors you more. But again, you can, if you do go into the smoke, if they don't have Glaz set up yet, and if they've already chucked their smoke, well, there you go. You got line of sight on whoever you need to come in there, and if you are positioned before the Glaz, well then, if you're overwatching, you'll get the riposte first. So the potential kill, he could still remain undetected within the smoke, things like that.
Like, and I would say just straight up, I think when I first started, I would discount the stun condition. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but honestly, it's super powerful. I think the reason I didn't like stun is because I was getting shot at a lot, but not behind cover. So 2 die against an uncovered operator is still pretty good. But if you're behind cover and somebody's shooting at you and they're stunned, you're not going to die. At most, you could take 1 damage, which is pretty good. I mean, if you watch the Chalet game I played just the other day with Scottson, there were 2 moments where I was able to attack his site with the hostage easily with a use of smoke and the use of stunning his anchor in there. And so the smoke allowed me to get a free kill, and then when Smoke was stunned, Smoke, the character, was stunned, I was able to peek around with knock and was able to take a shot from Smoke 2 times, and then I was able to easily shoot back. So I think stun and smoke overlay are both really good tools, and if you can get in a spot where Warden can nullify either of them, it's really good. I think he's really solid. Okay, next is a really interesting, kind of weird operator, maybe. I haven't actually gotten to use her yet, but it is Amaru. So Amaru has the big, giant grappling hook gun. So at short range, she's got a rainbow and an extra red, because 1 red is a cover die. At mid range, she's got a yellow and 2 red, and then at long range, she's got 2 red. She's a middleweight, so 5 health, yellow destroy, 2 sprint, and her gadget is the Gara hook. So she's got that little thing where she has kind of like a passive ability, but you have to spend an action to activate the passive ability. All right, so if you activate her passive ability, whenever she moves into an entryway space for 1 movement point, she can just move to literally any other free entryway space on the main floor. The only exception here is unless she's escorting the hostage, and obviously in the upkeep phase, the Gara hook is turned off. She is just a very super mobile attacker. She's definitely a fragger, I'd say. And the reason this is so good is because, obviously one of the biggest limits, or I don't know if it's a limit, but is the fact that when you move between floors, you cannot move back up or back down in the same turn, right? And Amaru can kind of get around that. So whereas with a regular attacker, you couldn't just move upstairs and then immediately move downstairs across the map. With Amaru, kind of that's what it feels like you're doing. From this entryway space, you could just move Amaru over here or over here, right? And immediately get her into any position that you want. And whereas on the defender side, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to Overwatch key entryway spaces. The thing with the defenders is you can always kind of work around that limitation that they can't move up and down. And so there's some entryway spaces you can kind of ignore on certain parts of the game. But with Amaru, you have to try and be watching all of them because she can just pop around to any of them whenever she wants. And with that good short to mid range, she can probably get a pretty cheeky kill, if you position her right.
Definitely has the appeal to hit and run tactics. With her ability doesn't use the upper floor, so you can still have 2 operators upstairs, and then as long as her ability is activated, you could just keep moving her from point to point. Obviously you're not going to be able to hit like 4 points at once to be able to do a whole lot, but you can ideally do at least 3 different points. You can, if you are close to an entryway space, you can use your ability, go through an entryway space, go into an area that you are trying to watch. You can deploy a claymore, and then you can send her back outside. Without having to be worried about anything like that. Or you can even you can do it to just get the kill, get a shoot action. Maybe you just want to locate them because you can wall bang with someone else. So I mean, I would even say that she is useful with her long range. It is just 2 red.
Yeah.
But even if you can get it, or even if you are just trying to get in some chip damage from a particular angle, it completely keeps her safe. So you use her ability to move to location, use a couple movement points, get your shot off, and then move back into a blue entryway space. So hopefully you're not playing against an Oryx.
I'd say the biggest thing with her is that you just want to make sure she doesn't get killed early on. In the recent Oregon game I played with Jack, I was able to use Mira to shoot Amaru outside, and he was not able to use her to pop around. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. Is if you can use her at least once, I think she's worth it. You just want to make sure that you're careful with her so you can actually use her to her best ability. Are we going to talk about your favorite new operator, the new star?
Let's talk about my new favorite defensive operator.
Yeah, the one everyone's talking about these days.
So we've got Goyo. We've finally been able to get some play with Goyo, and I think he should just be a staple in any team comp. He definitely just fits in any team comp. So yeah, we've got Goyo. He's a middleweight. Close and mid-range are super solid. Mid-range does have the yellow cover die, but that's fine. You've got 2 orange and a red to follow it up. And then even his close range, you've got rainbow. That's still totally fine. Long range, you're not really going to use too much. The appeal to Goyo is built into his ability. So when you use Goyo, you get 2 free deployable shields.
Mm-hmm.
That he just straight up comes with for free.
That's in addition to what you bring with your tactical inventory.
Yes, so you can easily bring 4 deployable shields, which, if you are using Goyo, I highly recommend at least bringing 3.
Mm-hmm.
But with Goyo's ability, so he's technically a trapper, even though he's not set up the same way as the other trappers, where it gives the opposing side a chance to spend an action to avoid their traps. And I think that's one thing that makes Goyo really strong, like one of the strongest attackers that we have, is that they can't counter his ability.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can bring, 2, 3, or 4 shields. I highly recommend bringing 3 or 4. But if an opposing operator moves into an adjacent space next to any shield, not just his, but even 1 or 2 of the tactical inventory ones that you bring in, you can use his ability to react to destroy the shield and place a fire overlay. They'll take damage based off of the orange die roll that you get to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's insane. That's super good.
So what you want to think about it is just to be clear, is, because I know there was some confusion on it early on. Don't think of Goyo's, the 2 shields that he brings as unique. He just brings 2 deployable shields, but his reaction triggers on just deployable shields in general. So that's why that works. I know some people thought that was kind of weird, but
otherwise. Yeah. But and he has orange destruction, which is good. Again, I know that's kind of been the theme with some of the, at least Warden, Goyo, and then we did have gridlock.
Yeah.
Orange destruction is, I don't know, it might be a little bit underrated, but once you start using it and realizing like how good just the destruction is, it's you start to bring operators solely based off of what kind of destruction rating that they do have.
Yeah, well, think about this. Like when we're talking about the tactical inventory, with Goyo, you could potentially not have to bring any deployable shields because you just automatically get 2. With his with multiple orange destroy actions, you could probably rest easy on impact grenades. So that leaves, maybe 3 bulletproof cameras and a nitro cell, or 2 bulletproof cameras and 2 nitro cells, and you've still got orange destroy and deployable shields on the map. So you've got literally every aspect of the tactical inventory covered.
But with the shields, you just place them next to entryway spaces.
Yeah, like this right here.
And they essentially turn into claymores.
Yeah, defensive claymores.
Yeah, so if you have 4 of them, awesome. You can watch 4 entryway spaces just with Goyo. The fact that you can react whenever you want is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then just put him in combination, if you're just worried about watching entryway spaces, cool, you've got your Goyo shields. You could run a Cade to also help on top of the 2 fortified entryway spaces that you have. Like if you just want nothing to do with the upper floor, you can do things like that.
Yeah, well, it could be a good, since we were just talking about it could be a good counter to Amaru, right? Like if you think you can't watch every entryway space, you can pop some shields next to him in case she tries to pop around to ones that you aren't watching. Right, so even if the attackers destroy the shield, 1, you don't have to use your reaction. But 2, even if you do, it's still dropping a fire overlay over the entryway spot. So for that whole round, they still probably aren't going to use it, which is very useful.
It can save you. It can save you an activation. It can save you a round.
Yeah, which could give you a round to actually like rotate out and make sure you watch your flank. So either one, it'll do either a kill, which would be great, or it'll do chip damage, which is also good, or it will just buy you a round, which are all useful. Yeah. Honestly, I'm surprised he's not a heavyweight, to like get rid of that sprint. Well, yeah, I know, but like he's got everything. He's got sprint, he's got orange destroy, he's got traps, he's got free gadgets on setup, he's got a good gun. Like he's just solid. He's just really good. Okay, the last attacking operator for year 4 is we've got Callie. Callie is another sniper. There's not many. I think it's just her and Glaz basically, right? So at short range, her gun's not that great. Just 2 yellow, not very good, obviously. At mid range, it's a little bit better. 2 yellow, 2 red, but one of those yellow is a cover die. That's actually not too bad, to be honest. A yellow, 2 red, like just 2 red is good by itself. So just throwing a yellow, that could be a kill right there. Then on long range is where she's really good. No cover die, a yellow, an orange, and 2 reds. So obviously, you want to be shooting with her at medium to long range, preferably long range. Because probably if you're shooting at somebody with this long range with no cover die, even with heavy cover, the chance of getting a kill is is very high. It's almost a guarantee, especially if you can use your reroll token. All right, she is a medium weight, so 5 health, 2 sprint. She also has the orange destroy action, which is really good. That seems to just be a theme so far with year 4. Most of them have orange destroy. And her gadget are the LV explosive lances. So these are a throwable gadget. All right, so they can be countered by Wamai and by Jaeger. And you get to ignore a maximum of 1 light or fortified wall or 1 barricade. So basically you can throw this thing through anything except an actual heavy wall, which is super nice. So 1, you perform the yellow destroy action on always visible gadgets, which is basically cameras. And all barricades. That's 2. All barricades in the room containing the targeted space. I've only got to use her once. It was in one of the Oregon games that I used her. I didn't really use her effectively, so please don't use that as an example for good play. I did get a good snipe on Echo at long range, which is good, but I didn't get to use her gadget. I think her gadget is really good, especially on a map like, yeah, I mean, we're showing off Consulate, but like if there's a lot of barricades in one room, a lot of cameras, right? I know as my defensive style, I like a camera-heavy setup. I just like to load up rooms with all kinds of cameras to really slow down the attacker. And Callie kind of gives you that alternate pick to Thatcher, like a Thatcher is banned, to just like blow up all the always visible gadgets in a room. She's one of those ones where I don't know how well effectively I will be able to use her, but I still think she's good.
The fact that you can throw through those fortified walls, and even for the fortified walls, like there's no defender aside from Mira that has any sort of hard breach, so it gives you the safety of pushing from a safe direction. And her ability, it's basically the opposite of fuses. So if you were to bring both of them in the same team comp, you could just completely obliterate a room of all barricades, all utility, with potential damage to operators from fuse. But it's just like an instant clear out of a room, which I think is really solid. As you said, she's kind of like a different Thatcher.
And don't discount destroying barricades too. There can be a lot of times where you get down to the wire in a game and you need all the actions you can get, and you do not want to be wasting an action having to destroy a barricade before you can go into a sight room, right? So like the cameras are obviously very useful, but also the barricade, being able to destroy all barricades is super useful when you're talking about freeing up action economy.
Just to piggyback off of what you just said about the barricades, it even works if you have another operator who's already positioned, leaning from behind a wall, overwatching, but they have a barricade blocking their line of sight. You've already got that operator positioned.
Yeah.
And if you're overwatching, at least through a barricade, if you're overwatching a defensive operator who has yet to activate, well, now you can use Callie's ability, destroy all the barricades in said room. Yeah. And now your already positioned operator is overwatching their operator.
Yeah, so like in this scenario right here, yeah, and like this scenario right here, if Gridlock is trying to get in, but you want her to use both of her actions, maybe to shoot and overwatch, right? Callie can, let's just say the camera was in this room, Callie can get rid of this camera and this barricade for Gridlock, and then she can pop in, you know, lean out and do her shoot or move in, whatever, and she doesn't have to spend that action to destroy, right? It's just super, super useful. Last up, you want to talk about Wamai?
Yeah, let's go over Wamai. So, we've got Wamai. He's got another middleweight. Is everybody a middleweight? Everybody except for Gridlock?
Yeah, Gridlock's heavy.
So yeah, he's got a pretty alright. Close range, you can still get damage through typically. Middle range, that's where it's all about. And then your long range isn't super great. But that's fine, because he brings magnets. And the magnet, opposing operators cannot toss throwable gadgets into a room containing a magnet. And that is not, because the key word is throwable, it's not just for any type of grenade, it is for things like Callie's ability.
Or Ace.
Or Ace, or Hibana, or just anybody that has a throwable, which is good. In my opinion, and I've done a lot of thinking about it, I know that you have Wamai and you have Jaeger as your two throwable counters. If you're doing pick ban, and if you can get rid of that IQ, I think Wamai is better than Jaeger ability-wise. But Jaeger does bring, I think, probably better gun damage than Wamai. It's just kind of whatever you're trying to play against and things like that.
Yeah, I think one, I haven't gotten to play him a bunch. I think the biggest thing for me is that Jaeger has the flexibility to choose which throwables to counter and win, and Wamai, you're locked into a certain room, right? So if you
Yeah.
put down magnets in a room that you think are going to be very popular, but the attacker just picks, a completely different area to push through, it feels like you're not really getting good use out of him, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with Jaeger, you get that flexibility. But that being said, especially if you're playing with pick ban, and I think you should play with pick ban because it's really fun. If they ban Jaeger, obviously Wamai he's the alternate. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good thing to know that he counters Thatcher's nades because those are throwables as well. So I think that's really good.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's the big thing, because other than IQ,
Mhm.
Thatcher is your big electronic removal operator on the attacking side.
Yeah.
But Wamai just straight counters them. Like,
Yeah,
he
it's true.
cannot do it, so that they have to get rid of the magnet before.
Hmm.
And if you could just have awkward positioning of your magnet, like, it's probably going to get destroyed, but if you can force the attacking side to expose their operators just so that they can destroy it, like, that's good enough, because now
true.
they're exposing themselves just to get one single destroy off, and then you can potentially get like one riposte, two ripostes,
Hmm.
things like that, which is an important thing to think about with it. But that's why I think I would pick Wamai over Jaeger.
Yeah.
But I totally see the appeal to both of them.
I think they both have pros and cons. Like something else that I noticed when I played him on Chalet is that, or I can't remember if I played against him or played with him, but on some throwables where the attackers can do something by targeting a space outside of the room, that can also, Wamai doesn't really do anything against that. So for instance, Ace can throw one of his charges to blow up a red wall. And even though the magnet is in that room, it doesn't counter it because you're targeting a space outside the room. I think if you could get both of them, both Jaeger and Wamai, that could actually be really powerful.
That is good, especially bringing both of them, because there are quite a few very useful attacking operators that do use the throw mechanic with their abilities. If you're paying attention, if you have a good pick ban going on.
Well, even if the attackers don't bring any gadgets that are throwables, just being able to, there's like half of the attackers' tactical inventory are throwables. So I mean that's a counter for half of their tactical inventory right there. And if you have both Jaeger and Wamai, you can pretty much just shut that down, pretty easily.
Then,
so
again, that's where just sort of the awkward positioning would come. Like you probably want to play around where you can defend it. That's not all rooms. Some of these rooms are designed like if you take the yellow staircase in the corner of the room, like that's a pretty safe position if you put it on the wall in between the yellow stairs and the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like right here. So you're talking about?
Yeah, like you don't really have to worry. They can't frag it or EMP it, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, some rooms will definitely be good, and if you can defend those rooms, if you have a setup that you're trying to do, or if there's a play that you do want to pull off that does involve rooms like that, it's easily doable.
I'd say to counter, probably you want to run a team with deployable gadgets. So Thermite could be a pretty good counter to this, where he can kind of sit outside a room and blow it up without having to worry about it. So when you're placing these gadgets, just try and place it inside the room as much as possible, and like you were saying, like spaces where they can't be easily shot at. The attackers have to get in and get up close to destroy them. That's what you want to do with gadgets like these. And if you position them right, it'll give the attackers such a hard time to try and get rid of it. They'll be angry, and that's what we want. That's what's most satisfying.